Welcome into ATL Day Ones with Jarvis and Tenitra. Coming up on today's show, I will tell you exactly who you need to be on the lookout for down at the Senior Bowl.
And there are some snubs, but then there are some snubs.
And last but not least, and for the culture, LSU is making it rain on Brian Kelly after one season. We'll talk about it all next, right here on ATL Day Ones. Let's go.
This is ATL Day Ones, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta. And it starts now.
First, I want to start off by saying thank you for making ATL Day Ones your first listen of the day. And remember, we are free and available wherever you download your podcast. And wherever you download your podcast, make sure that you leave us a 5-star review. We really appreciate that from you in advance. Today's episode of ATL Day Ones is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/Locked On today to get started. But today is the day. It's starting to get real because your boy is about to get ready to go down to the Senior Bowl on Monday, getting ready to travel. So, I've been doing my little homework, doing my little research and trying to figure out okay, who I'm going to have an eye on. And I think that when we look at how the Falcons have kind of really dove into this Senior Bowl rosters in the past couple of years, 10 players to be exact, and 5 from each draft, I think that this is something that we have to definitely have to pay attention to.
Yeah. And when you look at what they did and where I want them to be, here's my answer to that question of who you need to be looking at. Now, I will tell you my little trusty list here. And I'm just going to go down this list.
Just come on with it.
Because I went ahead and sorted it based on, guess what? Defense.
Yes.
So whether you want to look
Tenitra
at
Mantra. There we go.
Exactly. You want to look at Nesta Jade Silvera from Arizona State, Carl Brooks, Bowling Green. I mean, Central Michigan, Thomas Inku. I could go down this entire list of nothing but DLs. Keon White from Georgia Tech. Actually, one of our local guys who people are starting to really, really pick up on. I don't really care where you go. I don't really care what you do. I just know that everyone on here that has a DL or a DE or an edge or LB, ILB, MLB, I don't care. National team, fine. American team, again, you can look all over the place. I don't really care. I really, really don't care where you go. And I'm going to be nice, Jarvis. I'll go to page 2.
Okay.
And I'll admit, you've got some O linemen on that page. Hey, look at there, Warren McClendon.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is I don't really care who you spy. I just know you better come back next week saying I spy some defense.
I spy the defensive eye.
Solid one, people. Solid one.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be. It definitely have the Senior Bowl. They really get some good guys. They got guys like Tyree Wilson, who's the projected to go top 10 Falcons out of Texas Tech, and also another guy right here down in the SEC, Auburn's Derek Hall. I'm have my eyes on him, and then the other guy, TCU, who got a chance to see in the national championship, Dylan Horton, edge player out of TCU as well. So those are some of the guys I'm definitely going to have my eye on. And I think that when you look at what the Falcons will be looking for and just what they need, and I think, and I was thinking about this earlier today. I was thinking to myself, I was like, man, I really believe that the Fontenot and Smith are really going to focus in on his defense this season, and when it comes to free agency and in the draft. And I think that they're going to follow the Tenitra mantra. They understand, they hear us, they understand what's going on right here on ATL Day Ones, and know that hey, this is about to go down. But another thing that they have to kind of keep an eye on is the fact that they still haven't hired a defense coordinator just yet. And we all know how the NFL coaching cycle goes. People have their favorites and who they want, who they don't want. Well, it seems that the Indianapolis Colts fan base is have no interest whatsoever in Jeff Saturday being their head coach because they even gone to the lengths of starting a petition, for this dude not to be the head coach of the Colts. And I think that when you think about that, like I said, like I mentioned, the defensive coordinator search, is there a name out there where you say, hell to the now if if the Falcons hire there? Is there one guy out there you be like, you know what? They don't need to make that move.
Yeah, I can't really think of anyone off the top of my head. All I'm gonna say and it's really interesting because it kind of like depends on what is important to you, right?
Right.
And we talk about the obvious thing, which is you have a team like the Eagles, for example, and the Chiefs, for example. They have like 4 players that have 11 plus sacks.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And and exactly, you're loaded, right?
Yes.
So obviously, I mean, obviously you're doing some things correctly.
Right.
I would venture to say that any team, and by any team I do mean any team that has not come into, that particular space for this year. And I kind of think of teams like, I don't know, maybe like the ups and the downs of a team like the Jets. And the reason I mentioned them, Jarvis, is because I feel like they started the year. I feel like and again, just an example of one team that I would be like, hell no, because there's nothing like, and look, we don't have to go there again because is that not Jeff Ulbrich? If I remember correctly, is he still the defensive coordinator for the Jets?
I
But for
believe so.
Yeah,
yes.
Exactly. So if Jeff Ulbrich was the defensive coordinator here already, right? The active coordinator when Raheem Morris was the interim head coach.
Yeah.
I would probably say no thanks because it seemed like on all sides of the ball, that team just imploded in the back half of the season. And so the players didn't change. What happened? How did did you not coach them up the right way? And we both love Ulrich. Jeff
no
Ulrich,
doubt.
we loved him when he was here and he was good at it. But I'm thinking to myself, that's a head scratcher for me. That's a head scratcher for me. So just an example of like, if you're somebody who had a team that imploded in the back half of the season, no need for you to come here and destroy what Terry Fontenot and Arthur Smith are trying to build.
Yeah, I think the only one that will come, it's not like a hell to the no.
Right. It's just a head scratcher.
It's kind of like, I don't know about that one. That'll be Ryan Nielsen from the Saints. Because it's just like,
okay, that's a good one.
I get the whole being able to work with defensive line. I get that whole aspect. Like I respect the heck out of that.
Yeah.
This is coming from a guy who covers a team that seems to don't know how to do that or develop, or at least when they do draft them, they do not able to do development into productive players and get into the quarterback. So I understand and I respect that because like there's so many veteran guys that they've interviewed that I think they're viable candidates. And when you think about Vic Fangio, it looks like he might be going to Miami. And then we haven't heard anything about Brian Flores in quite some time. And with Frank Reich being hired as a head coach at Carolina, you got Steve Wilkes, who's a possibility, and they've already interviewed his assistant Al Holcomb, who took over as DC when Wilkes took over as the interim head coach for the Panthers. So it's a lot of little interesting dynamics going down when it comes to this defensive coordinator spot. People who have experience and have done well in the NFL. So a guy like Nielsen will probably be somebody I would be like, let's kind of hold off on the trying out things. You need to get somebody here with some experience and knows what the hell they're doing. So that's kind of where I am with it.
I can't agree with you more on that one. And I think that's why you keep hearing some of those same names like a Vic Fangio or a Brian Flores, or even now we talked about him yesterday, Steve Wilkes, because a lot of teams, the Falcons included, are looking for a guy that can come in and not just stabilize, but kind of take their defense to the next level. And no, we don't need anybody unless that person's already in the system. Now that's different if the Falcons decide that they want to promote Frank Bush. But other than that, nah, some people you just want to bypass. And I'm like, no, I don't know what in the world went wrong in New York this past season, but we're good over here.
Absolutely. And when you think about being good, T, there is a few good teams that are going to be playing this weekend in the championship series. And as far as with the Eagles going up against the 49ers, and the Chiefs will be taking on the Cincinnati Bengals. Like, any thoughts on like who will be going to the Super Bowl? You know, it's coming up pretty fast now.
It really, really is. And my hope, and this is one of those where it's like head versus heart. I'm going to go with the Eagles, and it's probably a little bit of head and heart, right?
Yeah,
Because
sure.
Jalen Hurts, like, finally, I think we've all known it, because if you watch SEC football, even before his Oklahoma days, you knew the guy had some potential. Now he has the right people in place, whether you look at it from the quarterback's coach and the OC perspective, or whether you look at it from like an AJ Brown, Devontae Smith perspective. And he's got himself a bit of a running game and an O-line that just does not quit. I mean, like,
it's just good.
Crazy. Yeah, I mean, right, exactly.
Good offensive line. Like,
there you go. So if I right, and so if we're talking about winning in the trenches, I do believe that as good as the 49ers front is, that they can win. And here's the flip side. I do feel like the Eagles D-line is going to come for Brock Purdy. Now, he thought he saw something in these, first couple of games. You might have thought you saw something with the Cowboys. You might have thought, and I said it that way on purpose, you might have thought you saw something previously, with the Buccaneers, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Nah, you haven't seen this D-line. You have not seen this defensive front. And I think that's where that game is going to be won. They're going to bring pressure on Brock Purdy and say, your run game is going to have to win for you. And we feel confident that we can stop that too. Even though Christian McCaffrey has been lights out. But I do think the Eagles are going to have something for them. So I'm going with the Eagles. But also, now this is a true heart one. You know me. I'm a big Red fan. So I just really want Andy Reid to go back to the Super Bowl. It's really all about him.
The storylines would be great, right? Going against his former team.
Exactly. I just want Andy Reid to go back to the Super Bowl for starters. And the only thing that gives me pause is Patrick Mahomes' ankle. And we really just don't know. Because, he was in front of the cameras. There were all of these like videos coming out of him trotting across the field a couple days ago, and then him walking off the podium looking like, hey, no boot, looking like he was good to go. But Jarvis, as a former football player, that you're not really sure about, especially high ankle sprain type injuries, until you're in the game. And granted, your adrenaline may take you through. Right.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Your adrenaline may take you through, but right, exactly. But I don't know if that's going to be a factor. But I will say this. Cincinnati has, beaten the Chiefs 3 times in a row, but all those games were close. The last 2 games had identical scores, 27-24. Mm-hmm. So I want to say, I'm going to be confident in saying Andy Reid is going to figure out somehow, some way to get his team over the hump. Only thing that makes me nervous is that ankle.
Yeah, the ankle is definitely going to be the key for sure. And when you think about on the other side of that, when on the NFC side, like Philadelphia Eagles are sending waves of dudes at Brock Purdy. And we know that I don't care who you are or what you do and what level of quarterback that you play. If you got that pressure coming through your head, you are going to fold at some point. And I think that's what's going to happen for sure. Now, last but not least, T, before we move on, I think we got to mention this. Shout out to Dana Brown being hired as the general manager for the Houston Astros. How about this, T? In baseball, we got 2 brothers. We got a brother running things as general manager, and we got a brother in at the managerial spot. And oh my God, why am I forgetting? My name escapes me right now.
Dusty Baker?
Dusty Baker, yes. Sorry.
Yeah.
My apologies, Dusty. All right, so Dusty Baker and Dana Brown. Dana Brown coming from up under Alex Anthopoulos' umbrella. Dana Brown actually hired him back in the day as well. So it's definitely a nice relationship there, and you're responsible for a lot of guys, coming in, Spencer Strider, Michael Harris, and all that stuff. So it's really cool to see him be able to step into the fold and be running things over there down in Houston, T.
Yeah, definitely excited about him, and not just the 4 seasons that he was with the Braves, but we're talking about a long-time executive, someone who has someone who has literally climbed up the ranks and who has a ton of respect all around the league. So this is an exciting time, not so much for the Braves, because literally it's like, oh gosh, now he's going from, the Braves, like literally from one World Series champion to another, as if they need to reload. But you got to love what he's going to be able to do, and he's got the weapons. Like we said yesterday, when you have a person of color, put them in position to succeed. And I feel like you probably can't get it to any other space to succeed than with the other world champions.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you think about speaking of love, T, we got the All-Star voting that went down. And we're going to talk about whether or not Mr. Trae Young or Dejounte Murray should have been on that list. But first, we got to talk about FanDuel, because guess what, y'all? We just started talking about the championship games, and they are here, right here. And we want to, introduce to you our new sports betting partner for Locked On, because they're the number one sports book in America. That's FanDuel. Yes, they are. And we have some really good stuff right here. Some features that make betting on sports fun and easy. Because that's what it's all about, right? Have fun, make it easy, and get some money. All right. Well, here's what we got for all new customers. Join today to get started with $150 in free bets, guaranteed, when you place your first $5 bets. $5. All you have to do is drop $5, and you're going to get $150 in free bet. You're trying to find all the lines, all the odds, and everything, all the over-unders for all these games on the NFL this weekend. We know you're trying to drop a little coin on the game, trying to win some money, because that's what we want you to do. So guess what? We're going to make sure that you do that by dropping your first $5. You can get $150 in free bets, win or lose, at FanDuel.com/locked on. That's FanDuel.com/locked on. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
Getting a snub like what Trae Young got after the All-Star starters were announced, I think that was a snub that felt like it was just of epic proportions. So, of course, we know that the usual suspects are in there. So LeBron James will be the captain for the West team, Giannis Antetokounmpo, the camp for the East team, captain, that is. Mm-hmm. But when you start going down that list of starters, that is where it gets tricky, because Trae Young finished 7th in overall All-Star voting amongst Eastern guards. However, when you start digging into the numbers, 5th in fan voting, not a big deal. 6th in media voting, still pretty solid. 12th in player voting out of 12? Make it make sense? I mean, are you surprised?
Yeah, I mean, when you think about like that, right? Because I guess you had some write-ins, because it was saying, from my understanding, it was like it was 2 guys that was written in that wasn't even on the list. So and from a player standpoint, so when you think about that, that kind of just makes you think, like, people really don't, the guys that in the NBA don't really mess with Trae Young like that, or do they not respect his game? And those are kind of questions I started thinking about when you think about, how he's viewed amongst his peers, right? Yeah. Because we all know the media looks at him a certain way, cool, 5th or whatever, or 6th. And then you have the fan voting, obviously, he appeals to the fan, obviously, here in Atlanta as well. So it just makes you think, like, I know for me, covering this team, I kind of like having a guy who's not well liked amongst his peers, because he ain't with all the buddy, kicking with everybody and all. Hey, let me go team up and go play with you and all that stuff. So that's the kind of thing I started thinking about when those guys are so tight like that. Now, Trey has his guys they are cool with, with Clutch Sports, and obviously with LeBron and anybody, Donovan Mitchell as well. He's up behind that representation. So I don't get too concerned just from a standpoint of them not really respecting his game. I think it's more so of, I hate to use this word because I feel like it's overused, but they might just be hating.
I don't know if I can go with that. Okay. I'm going to tell you what I think it could be. Not necessarily that, but a couple different things. Now, going back to the point about the league being buddy-buddy, I mean, that's what the league is. So my question would be, if this is I don't want to say indictment, but for lack of a better term, an indictment on whether or not he's a likable guy amongst the players, it does beg the question of, if this was an indictment on how they feel about him, does that impact Landry Field's ability to attract more high-level, A-grade free agents? That's where my concern was.
I smell you. Oh.
So you got that piece, and then you've got the other piece of a couple of NBA writers, like national writers, have said that there are executives around this league who are like, yeah, he's a problem. And not in the good way, like when we compliment you and say, yeah, he's
right. Yeah.
They're going in that other direction. So I was wondering as well, like, who knows? There could be some commentary like that out there such that players don't want to vote for him. But I'm going to throw this one out to you as well.
Let me add something to what you just said, though. As far as with the players coming over, Landry Field's been able to track players coming over. And I think that's why I feel like Trey is going to be willing to make this whole Dejounte Murray piece work, right? Because he kind of stood up and said, hey, I can make this work. Or y'all probably need to take a look at this dude. Let's make this happen. Let me have somebody that can come in and can handle the rock as well. So I think that Trey has some incentive to make this work. So if down the line there's an opportunity to bring another guy in or third piece in, like they can go ahead and do that because, like, hey, he stood up for this. He said this behind closed doors. Like, hey, I want this to make this work. We can make it work. They make it work, and then you make yourself more attractive. And I think you can kind of shoo away these little rumblings about him not being a likable guy amongst his peers, because we know that matters to you. That matters. Right. That matters when it comes to on court chemistry and all that stuff. So we'll definitely see. But I think it's going to be something that is going to have to be a wait and see mode when it comes to Trae Young about how this Dejounte Murray piece works out.
And that requires maturity. So we will see if there has been an evolution there, because the other piece there, it just does. But I think the other piece there is this. Oftentimes, players are paying attention to what's hot and what's popping. And right now, the Hawks aren't doing anything to make themselves relevant. They were relevant for a hot second with that 5-game winning streak. But for the most part, they've not been a part of the conversation about the top tier teams in the East. So when you're not a part of that conversation, it is that much more difficult to get in the All-Star game unless you are just like this, like you're blowing everybody out of the water, like LeBron James. Yeah, the Lakers suck right now, but it's LeBron James. So he's still going to get deference there. But I think a lot of it, or some of it, may also have to do with the lack of relevance of the Hawks. Therefore, Trey is just not on people's radar like that anymore. But I feel like that may not be a bad thing if, from a maturity perspective, and maybe even a #petty perspective, Trey can use this as motivation to say, yes, I'm perfecting my all-around game, which I still believe that's a big part of why his numbers are down. He is giving some efforts trying to be better defensively. But now he has to say, okay, how do I take what I've been doing, take what they didn't give me as the shine I maybe feel I deserve, and use that as motivation?
Wow, man, I think he's just going to have to continue to, feel the game out, right, with Dejounte Murray on the floor. And sometimes even when he's not on the floor with Dejounte Murray. And I think that's going to be something that they're going to have to watch play out as we go along during the season, because it's pretty clear that just the overall chemistry and how things flow and how things work, they haven't found that right mix, because it's been so up and down, right? It'll be nights where you see like, man, this is really can work. And then the next night, you're like, why did this get put together? Like, who did this? Whose decision was it to put this roster together like this? And you can't have that to both opposite ends of the spectrum like that. It has to be a balance. So once they find that balance, I think that I think they'll be able to, do some things. But until then, they're going to continue to spin their wheels.
Yeah. And this is not a story that's just one that we're following locally. This is national stories, because, of course, everybody's talking about who got snubbed, like Joel Embiid isn't a starter, how Sway. If you want to hear more of reaction about the biggest stories across sports, like the snubs for the starters, because, of course, also the All-Star Reserve list will be announced next Thursday. But today, you can hear it on Locked On Sports Today. Also, we gave you our picks for the championship games, the conference championship games in the NFL this weekend. I'm sure those guys at Locked On Sports Today have their picks as well and can let you know why. You want to know about it? You know where to go. You check us out on YouTube. You check us out wherever you download your podcast. So we want you to check out Locked On Sports Today. And we're about to get into For the Culture, right? They also have their version, which is Take of the Day. So don't forget, after you wrap up ATL Day Ones, give a few extra minutes to check out Locked On Sports Today.
and Locked On Sports Atlanta family. ATLday1s@gmail.com. I've been chopping it up with my folks on there. You want to know who? You want to know how? ATLday1s@gmail.com. That's all you got to do. Reach out to you. More than likely it's going to be me because, T, she got like 12 jobs. So, we're still working on that. We're working on that thing in 2023. So if you want to get in contact with the program, go ahead, shoot us a note. ATLday1s@gmail.com. But T, this is for the culture. It is the intersection between sports, entertainment, the culture, and sometimes whatever the hell we want to talk about, because that's how we get down on this show. Today is no different. How about this? Brian Kelly got overpaid $1 million, T, in 2022. $1 million, like an extra meal. Like it wouldn't have taken that long for me to figure out if Locked On paid me an extra $1 million in pay. Like I would have making that phone call after the first time, I think y'all got something wrong and we need to figure this bad boy out because I ain't trying to pay nothing back, Jack.
Right.
So yeah, but from my understanding is that he has them paying him to his LLC and actually paying him to his personally. So that's kind of how it got figured out. But they would have figured out. But T, come on now, and they said they started in May and they didn't figure it out till November.
Yeah.
Would it have taken you that long to figure that bad boy out?
Well, it's Louisiana. So I mean, you say this like this is shocking.
Yes.
I mean, it's one of the most corrupt, if not the most corrupt states in the union. And I can say that because I am from Louisiana.
And Brett Favre is the face of that junk.
Yeah, well, no, that's Mississippi. Don't put him. Yeah, don't give him to us.
I tried to throw him in there.
No, sir. Nope. He might be on the border of Louisiana.
Brett Favre came to mind. Sorry.
Nope. He might be at the border of Louisiana and Mississippi, but he is on that side.
That side. Yeah, stay over there.
We have more than enough corruption in our state. Please and thank you. But yeah, it wasn't a shock to me. I was like, yeah, it's typical. I wasn't shocked, but it was still funny because it's like, my goodness, what would you do with that amount of money? Or really, let's face it, for the thousandaires out there, what would you do if you had an extra 1,000 in your bank account? Like, how long would it take for your company to figure that out? And what would you do in the meantime? Would you go and raise your hand and say, hey, I think you guys gave me a little too much money in this check? Or would you just spend it?
I've had that happen to me before. That happened to me before. And I immediately said something because,
me too.
I know I joke about, taking that money somewhere and spending frivolously, but nah, I don't like owing anybody. So I would have made that call immediately.
Yes, indeed. So really glad to know that it's been resolved, but not shocked that it took that long to resolve.
And T, how about this? Before we get out here, just real quick, I know you got a chance to check out the video of Ronald Acuna with the 33-second celebration home run
my guy.
And I'm sitting up here looking at the video. I was like, oh my God, this is absolutely amazing. They need to let him do this and not say anything about it and just let the man be him. I think Ronald Acuna is back to you. We talked about on this show. I think this dude is an MVP candidate in 2023. Lock it in right now. I'm going to say it right now.
He's on mission. He is on mission.
Yes.
And granted, it was one of those crazy situations where, hey, look, everybody's passionate about different sports at different times. So people didn't take kindly to it in Venezuela. And there was a verbal altercation. Actually, it was more the fans in Venezuela going in on his family. And then his family was like, hey, I'm going to defend myself, not just going to stand here and allow you to do this. And so then the verbal altercation turned into a physical altercation. And at that point, Ronald Acuna Jr. was like, you know what? I'm retired. I'm done here. And the Braves were like, yep, come on home. We're good.
Oh, yeah, man. So glad you're,
Because what they don't want to do is have Ronald Acuna Jr. have one of those crazy injuries where it's like off the field just when he's getting back to being himself. So it is so priceless. And you know what it took me back to when he used to wear the hat to the back and the big gold chains in the beginning, and people were just falling out,
so
like they
taken
were
aback
beside themselves.
My gosh, the nerve of him!
Yes. And he gave this sport a pulse.
Right, exactly. Thank you. That's it. Period. Or period. Like the people say, the young folks say nowadays. Man, come on, y'all, man, love on this man, because guess what? He loves the game and he plays and he shows it every time he steps on the field. So I can't wait for our nephew to get this thing back popping off as the Braves pitchers and catchers report on the 13th of February. We're going to have our guy Grant McCauley on here real soon to give us a nice little preview and go over the offseason because a lot went down in the offseason with the Atlanta Braves. But people, before we get out of here, I want to say thank you for making ATL Day Ones your first listen of the day. Why don't you make Locked On Sports today your second listen of the day? Got a lot of good stuff, national stories. They got everything right there for you with the take of the day, just like we have for the culture. And you can find it wherever you find this podcast, wherever you listen to us. Go and check it out right there. Now, before we get out of here, I got to tell you this. If you don't do anything else today, I want you to share love, show love, and most importantly, when you get it, go ahead and spread it out.